Is it freezing? Is it me?
Try again.
Hi, Ken. How you doing?
Good, great. How you doing, Elizabeth?
I'm doing wonderful. Why don't we get started by you telling us a little bit about your career in pro football?
Okay, wonderful. I played 8 years in the NFL. I started out with the Dallas Cowboys, and I was released from the Dallas Cowboys, picked up by the Cincinnati Bengals. My first year, I was sort of like uh, a trainee because, see, I played college basketball. I didn't play any college football, so I didn't have a football background. Yeah, so it was a little different and a little unique. But anyway, I got to Cincinnati and I kind of learned for 1 year. Then the very next year, I became a full-fledged team member, and I started playing defense. And there was two positions I could play: defensive end and defensive tackle. And my first couple of years, I was a backup. Then my third year, I became a starter. And my fourth year, I was a pretty good defensive end. In fact, people were talking about me possibly being all pro. But I got injured and messed up my knee. And from that point, my career kind of slid. And I ended up retiring because I couldn't pass the physical for Detroit Lions. But 8 years is a long time. The average football player only plays like 3 years. And that's why they call it the NFL. And what that really means is not for long, because the game is so physical and so competitive. But it was fun. It was fun because, go ahead.
Yeah, continue.
Yeah, it was fun because, you know, you played on national television, Monday Night Football. Everybody saw you. And, you know, it was amazing. And people used to come up to me, want my autograph, all that. So that was exciting.
So what was your favorite part about playing pro football?
Well, it was being on television and everybody seeing me, and then being a pretty good athlete. You know, I was a starter. And to start in the NFL, you have to be a really good athlete. Then to come from not playing football in college to playing pro football, you know, in the pros, it was amazing. So the story is interesting how everything really unfolded, because I got a phone call my senior year in college. I was playing with the Indiana University basketball team. And after the season was over, my senior year, I get a phone call from the Dallas Cowboys. They said, "Ken, we want to talk to you about trying out for our football team." And I said, I hadn't played football since high school. They said, "That's okay. Would you come down and meet us?" So that afternoon, I went down to the field house where the scouts were. There were two of them, and they introduced themselves to me. And the first thing they wanted me to do was run a 40-yard dash. Now, in pro football, the 40-yard dash is the criteria to really estimate how quick an athlete is, or what kind of instincts he has as far as speed. So I never forget that day, the scout said, "Would you run the 40-yard dash?" I said, "Yeah, I'll run it." So I go to my locker, put on my basketball shoes, basketball shorts, and I get ready to run a 40-yard dash for the first time in my life. And I never forget that day. I get to the starting point, and the scout goes in his pocket, goes in his briefcase, and pulls out a gun. Well, I got a little anxious because I had never ran a 40-yard dash before, so I'm thinking they're going to be shooting while I'm running, you know, to make me run faster. And I looked at the guy rather suspiciously. He said, "Hey, Ken, it's just a starting gun. It only shoots blanks." I said, "You sure?" He said, "Yes." So anyway, I get down in my old high school football stands. And that scout raised his gun up in the air. He said, Ken, are you ready? I said, sure. Pow! I took off as fast as I could run, and I crossed the finish line. And the other scout looked at my time. He said, man, that's pretty good speed for a guy your size. He said, Ken, you ran that 40-yard dash in 4.8 tenths of a second. He said, we'd like to give you a trial for our team. Would you be interested? And I didn't say anything. I was shocked. But the next thing he said was, Ken, we have some bonus money. I said, say what? And I started looking at the briefcase, Elizabeth, because I'm thinking that that's where the bonus money is. And so I was anxious to really say, hey, man, I'll sign. But I said, let me think about it. He said, okay. He went back to Dallas, and I thought I'd never hear from the Cowboys again. A week later, I get a letter from the Dallas Cowboys football team. And I was shocked. So I opened the letter up and said, Ken, let us tell you about the NFL. They said, Ken, the biggest guy in pro football is 6'9". He weighs 290. His name is Bubba Smith. So you know what I started doing? I started comparing myself to Bubba Smith. This guy was 6'9", and I was 6'6". So I'm thinking, man, I had a small afro. So I said, man, I'm going to grow my afro out about 2 more inches. That'll make me 6'8". And I'll get some, start eating and get some weight on me. And I'll get as big as this guy, Bubba Smith. But check this out. The next thing I do, and this is something, I go into the weight room where all the football players from Indiana worked out. Basketball players, we didn't work out with weights because weights tighten you up. And you don't like to be tight as a basketball player. You want to be loose. So I never had touch weights. And I see this guy, and he's working out on what they call the bench press. He's pressing his ball over his chest, and it looked like a lot of weight. So I go up to the guy, and I say, hey, man, how much weight is that you're bench pressing? He said, 225 pounds. I said, man. I said, let me try it. He said, no problem. So the first time in my life I ever lifted weights, I lay down on a bench press, reach up and grab the bar, bring it off the bracket down to my chest, and on the first try, bench press 225. But man, I didn't know I could do that. Man, I was shocked. So I asked him I said, how often you come in here? He said, 3 times a week. I said, buddy, I'm gonna meet you in here. And check this out. For the next 3 months, I was in that weight room at Indiana University working out on the bench press, curls, military press, whatever I could do with weights. Guess what? At the end of 3 months, I was bench pressing over 400 pounds. My arms got bigger, my chest got bigger, and my head got bigger when I got over 400 pounds. Nobody on Indiana's football team could hardly do that. So that's when I called the Dallas Cowboys and said, send me that contract. And that was the beginning of my NFL 8-year pro football career. It's amazing.
That is quite the story, Ken. So earlier you had mentioned that one of your favorite parts was being on TV and getting to play Monday Night Football. So what was it like for the first time seeing your face and your name on a sports card?
It's amazing. I was spellbound because here's a little kid, I was a nobody coming up in my town as a young kid in school. Nobody thought I could do anything well. And so I really had to fight hard to win people over. But what happened was this. I started growing in the 9th grade, and I grew about 5 inches. And all of a sudden, things began to change. But, seeing myself on a card or even hearing about myself on football, on the television, it kind of blew my mind. I mean, it still is amazing to me now that kids still send me my NFL football card wanting me to sign it. I just signed the card this week and sent it to a young kid because he collects NFL football cards. So it's kind of mind blowing.
That's so sweet. I love that. So right now we're looking at one of your cards. Do you remember what's happening in that
Uh,
photo? Like,
yeah,
can you see yourself in that moment?
yeah, I can go right to it. Uh, we were playing at that time the Houston Oilers, who now is the Tennessee Titans, because they moved from Houston to Tennessee. But I was playing left defensive end, and I was going up against one of the Oilers tackles, and they were getting ready to run a sweep. A sweep is when they go to the outside, and that tackle job is to hook me. My job is not to get hooked or get pinned in so this guy can run around the end because I'm on the end and I'm protecting that end. And so I can't get hooked. So I got to force this guy back. So then the back will have whoever's running the ball have to turn inside. And that's what was happening at that particular time.
Very nice. So
Yeah,
Ken,
it's amazing.
I think now is a great time to kind of switch gears. And would you mind telling us about your testimony?
Yeah, it's amazing. I became a Christian when I was like 10 years old. I never forget, I was in Sunday school and our church was getting ready to have a revival. And I was sitting there in Sunday school and the pastor looked at me and said, Ken, would you like to get saved or would you like to receive Christ? And I jumped up, went up there and received Christ. And that was the beginning of my Christian journey and part of, in the beginning of really my testimony. I, growing up as a little kid, my mother taught me to pray every day, and my father taught me to obey. And those two disciplines will help you all through life, and I still try to follow them. But it was early on when God really revealed himself to me in a way that I knew that he was real. One night I was sick, and I never forget I had problems with my tonsils, and they bothered me. So one night at 7 years old, I'll never forget, I was 7 years old. I prayed to God. I said, God, I'd like for you really to make me feel better and to make this irritation gone. Well, you know what? The next morning, it was gone. And I never forgot what I prayed about that night. And so the next time something was very important to me was when, like, I was 10 and I wanted a bicycle. I had the worst bike in the neighborhood. And so I didn't think my parents would give me one. I didn't think they could buy one. So, I started praying about this bicycle at the age of 10. That Christmas, under the Christmas tree, was the perfect swinging red and white bicycle. That's when my prayer life took off. Because when I saw that, I knew God heard me. Not only did God hear me, but he answered me. And I found out, God says, call me or pray to me. And if he said, if you call me, I will answer you and show you great and mighty things you know not of. Isn't that amazing? That's Jeremiah 33:3. He says, call me. And what God is saying to us, if you'll talk to me, I will answer you. But it's like this. God can do nothing until we ask him. See, God can't force himself on us because God is a spirit and he won't do it. God wants us, though, to know him and talk to him. And so that's what prayer is all about. And that's why it's so important to have a strong prayer life. Well, next thing I wanted to be a great athlete because all athletes got attention. We like attention. But I wasn't a good athlete early on. I was cut from the basketball team, set the bench on the football team in the 7th, 8th grade. But the 9th grade, I made the team. And then I started praying. I said, God, if you make me a great athlete and you make me successful, whatever you want me to do in life, I'll do it. And I said, God, I want to be 6'6" tall. That was what I said. Guess what? When I finished high school, I was 6'6". I weighed 210 pounds, all state in football, all state in basketball, high school, all American. God answered every one of my prayers. And that was amazing. It's amazing what God will do if you will ask him. And so, after that, I went to college, as I said earlier. And I had no idea. In fact, the only reason I played football was because I had a football coach who challenged me to play football. He said, Ken, you ought to play football. You don't know what can happen. You may, end up playing football. And I didn't want to play football, but he encouraged me. So, I went ahead and played football. I was all state, but I said my senior year, I thought for sure it would be the last time I ever play football. Little did I know. And, they say this about young people. Young people, they say, only see the surface of life. Surface. That means they see what's on top. The real essence of life is beneath the surface. It's just like a tree. A tree is on top, but the essence of that tree are the roots. And where are the roots? They're beneath the surface. You can't see them. And so it's just like that. In life, for example, girls will see this guy and she think, man, he's tall, dark, and handsome like myself. And she said, man, that's my Prince Charles, whatever. And guys will see this girl and she's fine and got it going on. They think, man, if I could talk to her. But that's on the surface. They don't know what she's like or what he's like beneath the surface. They may be a pit bull underneath the surface. So you got to know what you're looking at and know that what you see ain't always what it is. So, but anyway, God answered my prayers. I went to college, started playing basketball, was all Big Ten, most valuable player on my team my junior year. And by my senior year, I had NBA scouts coming to watch me practice. Man, I had it going on. But there's always a but. My senior year, I turned away from God. Not intentionally, but other things got my attention, like girls, parties, and I start drinking a little bit. And all those things brought me down. And the principle is that whenever we turn from God, we fall in life. And that's what happened in my career. It faltered. And I was ready to give up and quit my senior year. But instead of quitting, I started praying to God like never before. I couldn't even sleep at night, but I'd be praying and telling God, God, help me out of this situation, this dilemma. I mean, it was bad. It was the worst time in my life. I was so depressed, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I was ready to quit. But you know what? That's when I got that phone call from the Dallas Cowboys. And that phone call turned my whole life around. And what it did for me was what I discovered, God can take our failures. And if we'll give him our failures, he'll turn our failures into victory. God can take our defeats. And if we give him our defeats, he'll turn our defeats into winners. God can take our broken dreams, our broken heart, and if we give it to him, he can give us a new beginning. Why? Because God loves us and he has a purpose in every one of our lives. So I went into pro football, as I had said earlier. Started playing my first 2 years of backup, third year started. By my fifth year, fourth year, I was one of the best defensive ends in the game. The teams wouldn't even run to my side; they'd run the other way. I mean, they would try to double team me. Sometimes I'd beat the double team. I had it going on, but I got successful again and turned away from God. Not meaningly, not purposely, but that's how the devil does. He distracts us. And if he can distract you from God, he can pull you away and let you, and because of it, you'll fall. And that's what happened. I got injured, hurt my knee, and I couldn't pass the physical. But one day, God spared my life. I was my last year in pro football. I had walked out of my house one morning. It was a Monday morning, and I had bought a customized van. And I get into that van that morning, just like any other day, and I'm driving. Well, I'm driving up this road where I'm approaching some railroad tracks. As I approached those railroad tracks that morning, I'll never forget, I passed the last building on my right, and my van comes up to the incline to those tracks. And all of a sudden, I hear a horn blow. So immediately I look out of my window, and when I look out of my window, this bright light was flashing, moving all over the inside of my van. I mean, it was dancing. When I looked beyond that bright light, there was a train coming around a bend fast. And boy, it shocked me. So, man, immediately I hit my accelerator to rush over those railroad tracks. Guess what? My van went dead. The most horrifying situation I've ever experienced. I watched that train blowing its horn, felt the earth moving beneath me, and I just knew my life was over. And I thought to myself, not like this. And bam, I went out. And I just gave up. Next thing I remember is two men dragging me out of the side door. They rushed me to the nearest hospital. I go in the hospital, the first thing they do is x-ray me, found no broken bones. Second thing, they examined me, no internal injuries. In less than 2 hours, I walk out of that hospital. I go back and see my van, the train drug it yards down the railroad track. The engine is twisted. The windows bust out. Everything crashed. Only place untouched, seat that I had been sitting in. God covered me up. And God can cover you up. That's the type of God we serve. He can do anything. My. And so after that, my career ended, and I started speaking all over this country, parts of the world, and telling people what God had done in my life and how he brought me out of all those dire situations. God is good, and his mercy endures forever. So, if you haven't accepted Christ, you can give your life to him. He said, come unto me, all ye that labor and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. See, this world is toiling all the time. There's always something. The only rest we can have is in Jesus because he's our Sabbath. He's the rest. And he wants us to come to him, so we won't be anxious about all these things happening in life. We look at our world today, and it's in chaos. But there's one thing, God is in control. And if you can come to him, he'll help you overcome whatever you're up against tonight. Maybe it's sickness. Maybe it's finance. Maybe it's a relationship. God works in every area of our lives. So I want to just thank Elizabeth and all those who are watching tonight. Talk to Jesus. He said, call me and I will answer you and show you great and mighty things that you know not of. That's what he's done in my life. And I'm thankful. Praise God.
Ken, if you could leave the audience with one thing tonight that they walk away with, Jesus. What would that be?
Isn't he all right? Thank God for the blood.
Can you hear me, Ken?
He's sweet, I know. God is so wonderful. Nothing
Ken, can you hear me?
Compares to God. Nothing compares to Jesus. Jesus is the only. The heavens declare his glory. The firmament show forth his handiwork. Day after day, night after night, his voice is heard all over the world. All right. Thank you.
Hey, Ken, can you hear me? Are we having...
I think his audio may have cut out. Can you hear us, Ken?
Okay.
Are you speaking, Elizabeth?
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Can you not hear me?
I'll text him and let him know.
Okay. Well, you know what? It was a great
I can't hear you.
thing to end on. Jake, should we just end it there?
Yeah, I just texted him that you're gonna close it out.
Okay, cool. Okay. So thanks all for coming. We love technical difficulties.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. It is time to wrap things up, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Ken, for answering all the questions and telling us about your testimony, about your career. If any of you have any further questions about anything you heard tonight, please feel free to email us at mydecision@sportsworld.org, and we would love to talk with you there. We also have a helpline for any of you that are struggling with anxiety, depression, or any other things. You can text CHOICE to 494949. Thank you again, Ken, and